probably miss a lot of things from this. It would really demand a full-on review, maybe if I get the next generation of computer. But let me start with this. This, especially for those who hate this movie, not very much dislike this movie. This is not a superhero movie. If you came for a superhero movie, you are. Why are you watching this? At the first X-Men movie, I told you, the X-Men franchise is not a superhero franchise. Never was. It probably intended to be, looking at the first generation of the X-Men comic, but it's fundamentally different because how the X-Men come to be. That genetics, it's inherited. And it is inevitable. Now, what would I define this as genre? Because, sure, we don't focus on a small group of characters and their doings. No, here are groups of people. There are individuals in this, sure, and we get their motivations and their highlights and all that kind of stuff, and we have a shit ton of new superhuman abilities. But this is not a superhero movie. It's not a small group of people fighting one or a small group of supervillains. The X-Men is not about that. If I would want to categorize it, and this will probably be surprising, I would call this a war movie. You know, like World War II movies, those big screen movies, like the one of the bridge is too far away, or Bridge on Kwai, River Kwai, or the Apocalypse Now, or I don't know, something big, something on the D-Day, or, you know, this is like that. This is a group of people fighting another group of people and a third group of people. Now, where do I start? Like, I will try to use the movie as it. So we start with Xavier recruiting Jean Grey. I will skip over that for now. I want to talk about Xavier at the very end of the movie. The first, it's still 10 past in the past, 10 years in the past compared to, X3. They are very close to each other, although we know that there was an election, presidential election between the two. That we see what, in the comic book calls him Angel. He only is called Winston. His full name is, in the comics, Vince Worthington. He's some son of some high-rank politician, and he is hitting puberty like 10 or 12, and he's cutting down his wings. That's his mutation. He doesn't really have a bona fide superpower. He just has a wing. So, as this movie has the mutant cure, and so that would be an actual physical alteration of the body, and not like something like a magnetism control or laser eye. This is so it works on comic book logic. But back to this. So Angel is cutting down his wings, and father is breaking down the door and sees this. And how the cure comes to be is from this. This is the origination point. The father wants to protect his son, so he abuses his political power, uses public money to get a cure for his son. Of course, this is much grander than just his son. It influences everyone's this life. And is he a villain? He should be a villain. The X-Men are fighting against him. But no, he's not a villain. He wants the best. And he actually finds a solution to the problem. Is this the solution we need? Let's ask, how about ask Angel? Why is he cutting down his wings? As it turns out, much later in the movie, so this movie has a bunch of slapbots, if you want to call them that, and you have to pay attention to everybody, each of them. So it's not for the TikTok generation, although it's a very flashy movie. He wants to cut it off because he sees that his father is disturbed by them, kinda, and influence, probably hiding him and don't show it to people. And what he should have done, the father, is to encourage him. That would be the good thing to do, the real good thing. But finding a cure is not necessarily a bad thing as long as it is not forced. Him providing an option would not be inherently a bad thing. And this theme is running through this entire movie. And then we get Scott, who has the power that his eyes are powered to the punch dimension. It's literally comic book lore. It's not, maybe not as bad, but it's debatable that why Luke Cage in the Luke Cage series wears clothes when he is in action. The only thing he achieves is a bunch of holes in his clothes. Probably it actually doesn't happen that way, but because that would be inconvenient for the whole thing. But moving on, the next thing we see is, there is a good, hologram room Star Trek style fight, and one of the big things for this movie, why this works, is this is perfect amalgamation of physical props and CGI. Both departments existed, and they did their best here, if you ask me. Now, here, what we have to thank this to Halle Berry. For coming back, she demanded a visual upgrade for all her abilities and in general. And I pretty much think most of the visuals and all the upgrades is thanks to this demand. And I love her hair. This time they colored her own hair. She just doesn't just wear a wig. By the way, let's talk about comic book accuracy. Ororo was not afraid his people in the comics, unlike in the movies. Ororo was a literal goddess in the eye of her people. They literally worshipped her. There were ceremonies. She summoned the storms for them, rain for better harvest and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure how he got into the USA and so on. And this is the movie where Iceman gets his classic style. And that's a cool effect. Unlike Silver Surfer, and we have to confess, the effect, the skin of Colossus, who gets his name here, even his civil name too, is kinda trash. So, they had to be clever with the budgets. So sometimes you find an effect or something that's not that good, but I want to watch a high resolution of this movie because of the ending fight scene. I just spotted a mutant who just was blurred before, I think, even on my DVD, and he has he is brutal. His ability, he is a physical brawler, and his ability is that his whole rib cage and even his face is torn to snap you. He pulls you in and snaps you. That's some ability. And he's just a throwaway character like some of the orcs in the Lord of the Rings movie. Let's talk about Rogue a bit later. Let's talk about Beast. He never uses his mutant name in this movie, but sure, if you want a mutant representative for your political sphere, you choose him, especially if you are non-mutant, because he is obviously a mutant. This is not a Nightcrawler situation, which I trashed because he was an obvious mutant. Here there is a story reason why he must be such mutant. Now, okay, let's talk about the cure. So the cure is suppressing your mutant genes and you become a normal human, and this comes from a mutant and cannot be replicated in a lab. So that questions the logic of this whole cure system, because they will run out of the cure. And look at the government. Did they use the cure on Juggernaut, Multiple Man? It doesn't use his name here, mutant name here. Or Mystique even. No. Even though they made weaponize the cure, they still didn't use it to turn everybody into human. Even if they were proven criminal, to not be let out like ever. Life sentence prison. They still not used it. So while the government is kind of a villain again, they are not a pure villain. They are a complex character. Now, Juggernaut. Is he comic book accurate? No. Is the Deadpool Juggernaut comic book accurate? No. Juggernaut in the comics is sure huge, probably about 2 meter, maybe 220 in centimeter, 2 meter 20 centimeter, 220 centimeter if you want to count it. I don't know how much is it in feet. The Deadpool one is like 3 meter tall. No questions asked. Is this version recognizable? He is. Could they have done better? I say, with the technology available in the production of this movie, no. This was the best they could. And they used it kinda effectively. And, I could go into a couple of details and nuances here, but I will skip over Storm standing on the balcony and the mutant gathering, which is, Magneto has a point. Is he a villain here? I say no, because weaponizing the cure and forcing and promoting it is not a good thing. But acting as a radical group, attacking the population and all that kind of shit, is not really justifiable, not a good thing. So again, on the one hand, Magneto is doing evil stuff, but for a good reason. Absolutely good reason. He's a radical. The one thing why every super radical group fails is they have no end they go into. Because what Magneto wants? He wants to live without fear of the humans being attacked and outcasted and all that. That's a valid reason. That's not a villain. He's just a radical. But that's not a definite endpoint. That's not something he wants. That's just a general white thing. And that's hard to fight for. And that is why, you know, Jean turns out ends like he does. No, Scott. Scott is just eaten by Jean. I mean the Phoenix. That's life. By the way, I don't find Famke Janssen hot. She's a model beauty. I accept that. But she's not a real actress and her beauty is not enough for me. Here, she doesn't really have to act. She just have to stand out stoically and the CGI people will do the work for her. And the subtle CGI masking of the Phoenix. You know, some shade here, some black line there, and the pupils changing color. I'm all into that. I love that shit. It's that's how you do it. I wouldn't want it any other way. When Storm is going to the lake where Scott died, also Wolverine, and Wolverine says, "I don't see jack shit," and probably his nostril, smell is also hindered by the salty water, salty fog, but see, Aurora is just, oh yeah, sure, I'm dealing with it. I guess she has some kind of power, like, sensory things like Daredevil is running. And that's a minor thing, they don't draw your attention into it. But she really would just go there and she wouldn't be bothered by the fog. And you stop to think about it for a second. That's a cool thing. And the rocks are floating. The Phoenix is just a force of nature. And she's scary, dark and beautiful at the same time. Also Xavier. We learn a lot about Xavier. He's the greatest villain of the X-Men. But first, let's go forward. Yeah, the government really didn't really plan for Magneto, neither for the moving prison, neither for, guarding the place. They sure they had the all plastic guns, but that was it. For Magneto, yeah, I want two things about him. One, when Professor Xavier dies, he knows he fucked up. Sure, at the end of the movie he even says it, but that's a confession, an open confession, where he knows he fucked up with Jean, is when the professor died. You see him. And you know what? I love that John McClane here was like 70 and you can see it. He's at the end of his lifetime and really he's still a radical. And he says it. This is his last stand. But He gets like 4 doses of the mutant anti-mutant serum, and the last moment of the movie is he still has the power. Even one dose was supposed to suppress your mutant power for good, and he still has it. Mutation is inevitable. The mutants are inevitable. You can't be stripped, even with the perfect cure. But again, what's when the kid dies and you know. But there is one other thing for Magneto I want to point out. When he transports the bridge, there is the family stuck in their car because they were crushed between 2 cars, so they couldn't get out. They didn't have time, but it's movie logic. Everybody else had the time to run off the bridge. Magneto didn't kill them. He could have just wiped all cars off the bridge or something like that, but he let everybody go. And the family is still there after he transported the bridge, and now they could come out, but right before them is the army of the mutants. And what does the family do? Actually, it's of the mom. It's absolutely one of my favorite moments in the movie. A big budget blockbuster movie with incredible storytelling. And my favorite split second is the mom locks the door of the car manually. They still had manual locks. Pushes down the button. And Magneto just smiles on it and turns away. This point, this is the mutants versus humans fight. And he lets that human family live. That's so expressive. That tells you everything. This guy is not a villain. This guy is just fighting for his own rights. His way of living. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. Yes, I said it. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. He hurts plenty of people. He kills people left and right. But this moment betrays his last sliver of humanity. That's still there. And I love it. This is, like one of the moments, like the juggernaut knocking himself out because the kid he takes away his power and he doesn't know it. I could point out some nuances like Iceman freezing the lake for Kitty Pryde. She is not called Pryde in this movie, she's just Kitty, doesn't have the mutant name either. He freezes the fountain, that killed all the plants in the fountain, I'm sorry. Yes, that happened. So if we want to nitpick, even on the good side, we can find faults in our characters. And yeah, Magneto's way is to just let loose everyone, and I think it will start to be the point we have to talk about Professor X. But before that, let's mention some mutant fights because there are some absolute highlights. There is the one that sticks itself to the bottom of the guard tower. What was his plan? He gets eliminated without achieving anything, and he, right at the first moment of the fight, he sticks there and does absolutely nothing then. What was the plan there? He probably should have supposed to climb up to the tower, but he never did that. I don't know what was with that. Or there is the mutant fighting Wolverine, who is shooting his bones. Can you imagine? Shooting out his literal bones as fast as you can grow them. That's some crazy body horror shit. Or when Wolverine again fights the regenerating man. There is a movie with that title. I will make a video about that sooner or later, probably sooner than later. And he cuts off his hand and does a growing back instantly. And I, I probably guess he could regrow anything even if his head would be cut off, but obviously Wolverine is on the good side, so he doesn't want to slash his head. And he kicks him on the ball. You know, that's a joke, by the way. I just recognize it as I spell it out right for you. From the first X-Men movie, the cage fight. You know, everything is allowed, but some things are not recommended. So, let's talk about Xavier. At least we should. But I ran out of time, so five sizes and all that. Let's talk about Rogue. Can I come up with a way when Rogue can touch people, have sex, and can keep her power? Yes, I can. You know, a full body latex suit or something like that, and a condom with a hole in it. But if there is one character you can illustrate the validity of the cure, it's Rogue. I know in the comic book that she never did that, although I think there was such cure one time or another. But yes, that's a proper end for her, and they don't even break up with Bobby Iceman. Although there is a talk with Wolverine and Rogue, which reminds her that can happen later in life. Life can throw you apart, and what then? So she knows the full consequences of her actions. And that is what Charles Xavier never cared for. I will make a second video about him, 5 minutes I think, or something like that, but because of file sizes I cut this short here.